We've talked a lot about the secondary and the pass rush improving, but I think the Florida Gators run defense might be the biggest improvement that we see on that side of the ball.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to, another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free whether listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And like I mentioned, I think that the Florida Gators run defense, and I'm not taking anything away from adding all the guys that Florida added in the secondary, hiring Will Harris, all this stuff. I'm not taking anything away from that. I'm just saying that I think run defense might be the more improved aspect of this game. Florida's defense, defending the run and defending the pass were both just terrible last year. I do think that not being able to stop the run might be more demoralizing than being able to stop the run and not being able to stop the pass, because that one you could just be out athleted, whatever it is. But allowing a team to just run all over you is just so demoralizing. Florida allowed 4.8 yards per carry last year. That is horrendous, terrible, no good, very bad in every way, shape, or form. And that's including that against McNeese State, Florida allowed under 2 yards per carry. And against Charlotte, Florida allowed 2.7 yards per carry. Yeah. The only other game where Florida allowed under 3 yards per carry was Florida State, where they allowed 2.9. And even then, that was injury to the quarterback, injury to Jordan Travis. They were using Tate Rodemaker, I believe his name was, and they had no threat to throw the ball. So, yeah, it was really rough. LSU averaged 9.4 yards per carry. A lot of those came on Jaden Daniels scrambles. Kentucky averaged 9.1 yards per carry. Those were, that was all Ray Davis just pummeling Florida repeatedly. There were a lot of reasons for that. You could look at Missouri, averaged almost 6 yards per carry against Florida. A lot went into that. And I know that so many people like to talk about specifically two guys. When they talk about how bad the run defense was last year for the Florida Gators, they really like to bring up two players specifically. And they did this when these players were still here. This wasn't like, oh, they left, I blame them. It was Princely Umanmielen and Scooby Williams. We'll talk about Scooby in a little bit, but I just want to make it clear, like, having an improved defensive line unit this year is going to make your run defense better. There are some things that Princely did that Florida Gators fans hated while he was still a Gator. And we'll talk about that later, because I do think it's funny that's one thing where everyone blamed Princely and they're like, you're not coached to do that. I'm not too sure about that one. It's just fun. But you look at the Tennessee game for Florida, and Tennessee averaged 3.3 yards per carry. They had 100 rushing yards, but 30 carries. And a lot of that was because of big man in the middle, Cam Jackson, number 99. I think he's one of the best pure nose tackles in college football right now. And I mean pure nose tackle. He's just going to be right in the middle. He's going to eat space, dominate that interior line of scrimmage as a zero tech. And he did that. You look at the Tennessee game, and he did that. The Tennessee game was Cam Jackson's moneymaker. And I'm being so genuine right now, because I know that everybody talks about Tennessee as oh, they have the 4 verts because they run switch verticals all the time. They throw screens and pick up yards after the catch, and they do all these things that are very air raidy. But don't get it twisted. This is still that Art Briles offense of hey, we're going to spread you out as much as we possibly can with 2 receivers stacked all the way to the sideline, but we want to run the football. And Tennessee has had success doing that under Josh Heupel. You know when they didn't have success doing it? Against the Florida Gators, because Cam Jackson dominated, and Cam Jackson is back. So that's one of the reasons that when people talk about the Tennessee game, I'm like, look, Cam Jackson just took their lunch money last year. They need to be ready to do something where they can stop him, or it's going to be the same thing. So Cam Jackson is back. Caleb Banks is back. And I think right now, Caleb Banks is expected to start at that big end spot, that 3-tech really, which is a defensive tackle. Caleb Banks is expected to start there with Joey Slackman backing up. I do believe, again, that we'll see Caleb Banks play both the nose and the 3-tech. We'll see Joey Slackman play that 3-tech a lot more as well. Joey Slackman, look, he's not this elite pass rusher. He generates better pass rush than I think most college defensive tackles do, because, look, generally, college defensive tackles typically aren't very good pass rushers. It's a lot of guys who just win with their first step and get into the backfield, or it's guys that are more run stuffers than anything else. There's very few guys that are actually skilled pass rushers at the defensive tackle spot. And I'm not saying Joey Slackman is. What I am saying is that if you watch the spring game, I've been very critical of a lot of guys on this team, I think. But if you watch the spring game, and I think most of the offensive linemen, I say, hey, like, even if you're a bad pass protector, you're pretty good in run blocking, like Damian George. Like, I say, hey, he's terrible at pass protection. But as a run blocker, he's a killer. Joey Slackman consistently, whether he was eating double teams or he was not losing ground at all. Like, he was not losing ground. And I think that that is going to be where he really makes his impact this year. I think that you look at Joey Slackman and you watch him just play with power and just hold his ground against a guard and a center, against just a guard, whatever it is. He doesn't lose often. I'm not saying he wins a ton, but he doesn't lose often. And when you're talking about defending the run, that's good enough for me for a lot of guys. Because at the defensive line, you're supposed to be holding these blocks, as in engaging with the blocks, either deconstructing them and getting to the backfield and making a play, or you're supposed to be maintaining your ground and allowing linebackers behind you to make plays. And I think Joey Slackman does a really good job of maintaining his ground and allowing linebackers to make plays. Looking at Tyreek Sapp and Justice Boone, they're in at the F. Justice Boone should be back and healthy and able to play. So Tyreek Sapp and Justice Boone in at the F. Look, I've said before, I think Tyreek Sapp is better suited for that 3-tech spot working on the interior of the defensive line. But he's not. He's on the edge. I expect him to be able to hold his ground. I expect him to be able to do his job. Looking at the jack spot, TJ Searcy's the guy that I expect to start. He's the guy that I would start there. And I think that he's going to be a bit better than what we saw from Princely. I will again say that there's some coaching points that I think a lot of Florida Gators fans don't like and won't like, and that's just tough cookies, if we're being honest. But I think when you look at the defensive line, their improvement makes the linebackers' job easier. And that was what screwed Florida a lot last year. Okay? Linebacker play was bad. Defensive line play did not make it easier for them, really. And it should have made it easier. It didn't make it easier for them, though. I also would like to touch on, before we move to linebackers, Gerald Chapman coming in as the defensive line coach, coming over from Tulane. Tulane were savages, okay? Their defensive line was sick, and a lot of it was, hey, we're going to stop the mother and run. It was as simple as that. We are stopping the run with ourselves as the defensive line. And so I do think that not only do they make the linebackers' job easier for Florida now, but they're also just straight up better at stopping the run themselves. Like Joey Slackman is someone that I expect to stop the run on his own as well. We are about to talk about linebacker play and how that's going to be improved, I believe, this year for the Florida Gators. But first, a quick word from Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could just see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Like Yahoo Finance for 25 years now has been the brand behind every great investor. So you can try the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including, but not limited to, breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Yeah, you could do that. I have no problem saying I'm a nerd, right? Customizable charts, that's my shit, isn't it? For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. And I mentioned linebacker play, but really we're talking about the back seven here because run defense is like it's not as simple as, oh, the secondary doesn't do much run defense. That's not their job. No, it's your job. We'll talk more about it next segment again when we talk about the coaching stuff here. But when you look at the back seven for Florida, and the back seven is not the front four, so not the three defensive linemen and not the stand-up edge rusher. I don't care if you want to call it a 3-3-5, a 4-2-5. I don't give a damn. To be honest, I call it the hybrid 4-2-5 because that's what the people who built the damn thing call it. So that's what I call it. But when you look at the linebacker play, the off-ball linebackers, a lot of their job can be made a lot easier by having good defensive line play in front of them when defending the run. And by that, I mean, you look at the Kentucky game where Ray Davis ran for 9.1. And I've said this before. I might have only said it to the subtext group, which if you want to be a part of, it's join subtext.com/LockedOnGators. Links in the description below. I might have only said it to the subtext group, but I said I met Ray Davis at the Senior Bowl in Mobile this past January, February. It was like the transition week. I met Ray Davis in Mobile. I met Ray Davis' dad in Mobile. And you know what I told them both? I said, hey, man, you ruined my whole day. All right? I'm just going to be honest with you. You ruined my whole day twice now because he did it at Vanderbilt last year. So you look at what Ray Davis did, and a lot of what they did, what Kentucky did, was they ran the same few plays, but they made it where the linebackers needed to come in and make plays. They made it where Shamar James, Scooby Williams, Manny Nunnery, Taraja Mitchell, whoever was out there needed to come up and make plays. And that was one of the biggest issues with the Florida Gators last year, was that they had Scooby Williams there, okay? And just personnel-wise, Florida has Shamar James back and healthy, who he got hurt warming up for the Georgia game. If I'm not mistaken, that was the week it happened. Missed the rest of the season. Pup Howard is in from South Carolina with Scooby Williams transferring out to Texas A&M. That was an upgrade, okay? And I want to make it abundantly clear. You can go back during the games last year, after the games, during the week. I like Scooby Williams. I didn't think he was that good as an off-ball linebacker, but he did something that I think Florida kind of lacked at some point, which is having someone that communicates openly and vocally. And Scooby was as vocal and characterized as they come when it came to communicating. He was screaming, rubbing his belly, whatever call that was, throwing a diamond. He was calling Jay-Z out here, whatever he was doing it. Okay. He, however, like before the whistle and after the whistle, he was good. But that in between time, like the snap to the whistle was not good for Scooby Williams. Okay. He just was not very talented at playing off-ball linebacker. I don't believe he was suited to play off-ball linebacker. I've said that multiple times. I think that he was bad, sure, but I fault the coaching staff for putting him in poor position more than I fault him for being bad. If you put me out there and you go, hey, man, you're our starting jack, I'm going to be bad. Are you going to blame me more than you're going to blame the coaching staff for putting me out there? Like, no, I'm going to blame the coaching staff. I don't think Scooby was good. I think Scooby tried his absolute best. He just wasn't good enough. And sometimes that's what it comes down to, right? Pup Howard, I think, is good enough. Then yes, that Kentucky game, they kept running that long trap, counter. Everything they ran was, hey, we're going to make the linebackers make plays. And they did not make plays. Scooby Williams was not going to make plays for you in that situation. Okay? He didn't have good enough instincts as an off-ball linebacker because don't forget he started as an edge rusher. So he didn't have good enough instincts as an off-ball linebacker, didn't have good enough instincts working in space. Shamar just didn't make the plays. And the defensive line didn't make the plays they were supposed to make, which I think they will make this year. I do think that they're considerably improved. Then you look outside of just that little off-ball linebacker section, and there's one thing that I'm really excited for when we talk about what the defense is going to look like this year, and we'll talk more in depth about it, and we'll get crazy with things here. Jordan Castell. The Florida Gators will be running 2 high looks and a single high look. Like, we'll see that frequently. That's what they're going to do. They want to make things just constantly shifting on the back end, right? Watching the spring game, when they went with these single high looks, and it was Jordan Castell and Asa Turner was the deep safety, and Jordan Castell was down towards the line of scrimmage. Okay? So when I look at that, I'm watching someone where I say, okay, Jordan Castell is a pretty big dude, right? Like, he's pretty big for a safety. Nick Saban wanted him to play linebacker. You're going to have Jordan Castell hanging closer to the line of scrimmage more this year, where last year he was kind of relegated to playing deep safety because Florida didn't have people that could do it. So they put Jordan Castell back there. Then this year, you've also got Sharif Denson. And look, Jaden Hill had a good year considering what the expectations were, considering that I had a lot of doubts about him going into last year. Wasn't the most active. Like, he made some nice run stops. Like, a lot of what he did in the run game is just ankle biting. That's not a sustainable approach to tackling in the backfield or tackling in space. Ankle biting doesn't work all the time, right? Sharif Denson, you watch the spring game, Sharif Denson is trying to get mixy with it. Like, he just is. He's about it. And so Sharif Denson is someone that I look at and I say, hey, man, like, you're playing star this year. I'm really looking forward to watching that play out. So I think Sharif Denson's going to be a stud at the star position. So I think that when you look at Pup coming in, Scooby going out, you look at Shamar coming back and healthy and having another year in this defensive system, having another year just in college with a new strength and conditioning program. You look at Jordan Castell, new strength and conditioning program. You look at Sharif Denson, new strength and conditioning program. I think that you're shaping up to be more impactful. And you also look at, obviously, we've seen the spring game is a spring game. I don't put too much stock in it, but the tackling looked improved in there. Just from a technical standpoint, the tackling looked improved there. And so I'm going to be really happy about it. We are about to talk about a scheme thing that I do think that some of you aren't going to be super stoked about. But first, we're going to get a quick word from FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. And I'm just saying, like any investment, I look at gambling as an investment. I'm not going to lie. Any investment, you go, hey, you could put $5. Worst case, you lose $5. Best case, you win however much you win from the bet, and $150. I'm just saying that's pretty good risk reward ratio there. I'm just saying. Remember that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free reviews on the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's show, I'm gonna talk about something that I don't think many Florida Gators fans are going to like. And I understand it. I understand not liking it. However, do you remember watching last year? Like, even we could bring up the Kentucky game again. You could bring up pretty much any game. You remember last year, whenever an opposing team would have a pulling lineman or a pulling tight end, whoever was pulling anywhere, do you remember watching that? Looking at them run, I'm going to bring up Princely because Princely was the one that people were posting the clips of on Twitter and everything. Do you remember watching the game, seeing a pulling lineman coming at Princely Umanmielen, looking at the lineman come at Princely Umanmielen, looking at Princely, watching the lineman coming at Princely Umanmielen, and then you see Princely Umanmielen kind of just drop his shoulder, hold his wrist, drop his shoulder, hold his wrist, and just eat the block. Do you remember seeing that? Because I feel like a lot of Florida Gators fans complained about it, where Princely just drops his shoulder and eats the block from the pulling offensive tackle, tight end, guard, whatever it is. He just eats the block, right? Eats the block, takes the initial contact, holding his wrist, and then he gets his arm free when he's engaged with the blocker. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm doing it. Like, do you ever watch 300 and they've all got the shields and it's just like, yeah, like that? That's what Princely would basically do when a pulling lineman came at him, when a pulling tight end came at him, whatever. That's boxing the run. Okay. And I needed to bring it up. And I told the subtext group about this maybe a week or two ago that I was like, hey, I'm going to bring this up and you're probably not going to like it, but we're going to talk about it a little bit on the show. When you're boxing the run, that's what Princely was doing, where he's putting his shoulder down, he's eating the block, and he's trying to keep his outside arm free. That's what he's doing. Whether or not he did it effectively, whether or not he did it well enough, that's what he was doing. And there were times where, if I'm not mistaken, he even said it on like Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, where he was like, hey, this is what I'm being coached to do. And pretty much everybody on Twitter was universally like, what the? No, you're not being coached to do that. Nobody would coach you to do that. Buddy, watch the spring game. Okay? I want you to watch the spring game, because when you watch the spring game, what you see is a lot of Florida Gators defenders on the edge. When there's a pulling lineman, you see them drop their shoulder and just eat the block in that inside shoulder and try to keep that outside arm free. Okay? That's, again, boxing the run. The purpose of it is I've got the puller who's supposed to basically spring the run. You know, the puller comes in, he does his job, moves me out of the way, and then you've got that outside track, right? So what Princely was doing, and what you will see Florida Gators edge rushers do this season, and you saw everybody that played Jack do it last year, when that puller comes in, he eats that block and he tries to keep the outside arm free, because if he eats the block and he keeps the outside arm free, you know what that's supposed to incentivize the running back to do? It's supposed to incentivize the running back to cut in. And when he cuts in, you know what's supposed to be there? Linebackers, safeties, interior defensive linemen. And I'm not saying Princely was a perfect player, okay? I'm not. I am saying what I've said before on this show, okay? I spoke to scouts at the Senior Bowl in January of 2023, and they were like, hey, that Princely kid is really good. They didn't say Princely. They called him number 33. They're like, that number 33 is really good. I love the way he defends the run. Because you know what he was doing defending the run? What he was told to do. He was told, hey, man, eat the hit, keep your outside arm free so that you can try to grab them if they try to go outside you. But really, we're trying to bounce the run back inside where you'll have run support. There's also the other option of trying to spill. Spill is when you're trying to force them outside because you want corners and safeties and everybody that come flying in, and you have fast linebackers and they're supposed to be flying across the formation and coming to make plays and coming to make stops. Florida likes to box the run a bit when you see that power run. They like to box the run. So he's supposed to be setting the edge. And so the running back cuts in and everybody else is funneling into that lane to come make plays. Cam Jackson is holding the point of attack in the middle, and that means that Princely keeping you inside the tackle, the tight end, whoever is on the edge there, whoever he's engaged with, keeping you inside that, right? He's boxing you in. And then you have linebackers coming in to make plays. Last year, where it went wrong was that linebackers were not good at stopping the run there, identifying where they had to go and getting to where they had to be. Safeties were not coming up enough to come make stops. The star spot with Jaden Hill was not coming up to make enough stops, was not coming up to make enough plays. I'm not saying Princely was perfect in any way, shape, or form. I understand he's had a lot of flaws. He has a lot of flaws in his game. I get that. I get all of it. Trust me. I am saying that if you watch the spring game, you see that this year. It wasn't a Princely thing. It's a coaching thing. In fact, that Princely doing that was what made me even learn what box versus spill was. So Princely, as much as you may not like it, that's what he was told to do, and they're going to do it this year again on the edge. Linebacker, slot defender, safeties need to come up and clean the play up. Run defense is a team effort, okay? Just needs to happen. That's all I'm saying. They're trying to box the run. That's it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We will be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.